Hello and welcome to Sourcing in Procurement and Supply. We are on the second unit, Surveying the Supply Market. We walk through and pass by several suppliers when we get to the market just to settle on the best. In this section, we will look at suppliers' perspectives on sourcing. By the end of this first section, we should be able to identify ways of developing the supply market, understand supplier appraisal and supplier approved list, explain feedback, and explain the supplier preferencing model. As procurement and supply chain professionals, before we buy anything, we need to understand the market in which we are getting our requirements from. One way of doing this is to survey the market. Surveying the market here means identifying or locating suppliers that may potentially be able to supply the requirements. As a buying organization, we need to constantly monitor the supply market relevant to our organization's requirements, as well as the performance of the existing supply base. Knowing this will help us understand the market of our requirements better, and if there is a need to develop the market, then we do it. So as procurement professionals, we can't only care about our organization. We need to care about the supply market, the markets we get our requirements from. Everything with that market should be important to us, because that is where we get our materials from. Simply put, if we want to achieve value for money, which is our main objective in public procurement, then we need to understand the supply market and also develop the supply market. Supplier appraisal and approved supplier list. Supplier appraisal is the assessment of potential suppliers as part of the supplier selection process prior to contract award or supplier approval. Before an organization will consider working with a particular supplier, that supplier must have gone through our supplier appraisal stage or our supplier appraisal process, which is when organization establish some criteria to assess our potential suppliers. Remember, supplier appraisal is used to assess potential suppliers and not existing suppliers. With this, the organization will come up with some criteria. For instance, as a supplier, before you can work with us, we can award this contract to you, you need to have probably 50,000 cedis in your account. You should be able to have done or worked with this and this person. You should have this certificate. The organization comes up with the criteria they need or they are looking out for, and assess potential suppliers, evaluate potential suppliers using this criteria, the already established criteria, in order to shortlist suppliers for future contracts, right? Following the appraisal process, one or more suppliers may be officially recognized as being able to meet the standards and requirements of our organization and are therefore eligible to submit invitation to quotations or tender contracts. This is what we refer to as the supplier approval, and the supplier that has been approved is kept on our list. Hence, our supplier approved list. So the supplier approved list is basically a list of suppliers who have gone through our appraisal process or phase and have passed, qualified, and the organization deems them qualified to bid for future contracts or submit their quotes for current contracts. That's the difference between the supplier appraisal and supplier approved list. The supplier appraisal is the criteria we use to shortlist or evaluate suppliers' capabilities. And once a supplier has gone through this appraisal successfully and have been recognized successful, then that supplier is kept on our supplier approved list. So that in the future, if we need suppliers for requirements, we just go to our supplier approved list, which has the list of all our suppliers for each requirement, right? We don't have to go through the whole process again. We just go to that list and then pick some suppliers from there, because we know all these suppliers on the list have gone through the appraisal process and have qualified. After we've gone through an appraisal, we need to communicate the feedback of that process to the suppliers. We don't just go through a procurement process and after the whole thing, keep the outcomes to ourselves and assume the suppliers don't need to know what happened. The buying organization will need to provide feedback to each supplier subjected to detailed pre-qualification or assessment. This feedback is not just to the successful supplier, but even to the unsuccessful suppliers, because they deserve to know how The buying organization evaluated them, and what prevented them from achieving the approved status or from winning the contract. Once we do this, we are providing the suppliers with helpful information. This will help them improve their performance and competitiveness for similar future contracts. This will also give the suppliers some benefit as a return on their investment in the appraisal process. Remember, they spent money, resources in the appraisal process. So after everything, they deserve some return on their investment. They deserve to know why after all this investment they didn't win, so that they will at least use that information to go and build themselves. They use it to improve on their performance for future contracts. Providing feedback will also leave suppliers with a positive impression of the organization, raising confidence and integrity of the appraisal process and enhance trust for future sourcing exercises or tenders. If I'm a supplier and I bid and I don't win, I'm probably going to think this organization is just wasting our time. They already know who they are going to award the contract to. In the future, I'm not going to waste my time bidding. But then in the case where you communicate the feedback to me, I know this is what I did wrong. This is what I can do to improve myself. Then there's this transparency. I know this is what happened. This is what this person that won did that I didn't do. And now because I have seen what the winning contractor actually did and what I didn't do, there's some trust in the process. And in the future, definitely when you call for tenders, I am going to bid. This will help preserve the buyer's reputation in the supply market for fair, positive, ethical, and transparent sourcing process. Sourcing appears to be all about the buying organization selecting suppliers they want to do business with. Like we saw in the first unit, organizations have the Pareto's analysis or Pareto's 80-20 rule, in which they use to classify suppliers into two: the trivial mini suppliers against their critical few suppliers, or organizations using the project's positioning metrics, in which they have the core suppliers, just strategic suppliers, their non-routine or non-critical item suppliers, their bottleneck suppliers, and all that. We're saying that it's not only the buying organization that gets to choose the suppliers they want to do business with. Suppliers also get to select the customers with whom they want to do business with. So here as an organization, a buying organization, you may want to do a business with a particular supplier, but how does that supplier feel about doing business with you? This supplier preferencing model is going to take us through how this is done, what the suppliers look out for, and then what they use to classify the relationship with the buying organizations. The supplier preferencing model is an analysis tool in the form of a matrix with 4 quadrants, which illustrates how attractive it is to a supplier to deal with a buyer, and the monetary value of the buyer's organization or the buyer's business to the supplier. So we have the attractiveness of the buying organization on one end, and then the value of the monetary value of the buyer's business to the supplier on the other end. We have the high, low, low, high. So we take the first quadrant, which is nuisance. Nuisance has low attractiveness of the buying organization and low value of the buyer's business. So you're saying that these buyers are neither attractive to the suppliers, nor do they add any value to the supplier's business. They are a nuisance to us. We don't want to be associated with such organizations. As a supplier, I don't want to do business with someone who is not attractive. Probably one way of classifying an organization as not attractive may probably be because they have bad reputation, poor reputation. Probably they use child labor, they're not sustainable, customers don't like them. As a supplier, I wouldn't want to be associated with such an organization. At the same time, you're not even adding any value to my organization. Whatever you are buying is poor. If people even find out that I'm doing business with such a such a buying organization, I'll be in trouble. My business will be in trouble. I may end up being cancelled. So what suppliers do to such organizations is they either cease to do business with them, or they increase the prices of the items they sell to them in order to move them from the nuisance quadrant to the exploitable quadrant. Exploitable customers, they offer large volumes of businesses, which compensates for their lack of attractiveness. The suppliers will fulfill the terms of their contract or the supply contract, but they will not go out of their way to provide any extra. Remember, I'm only with you for your money. I'm not going to kill myself and go any extra mile for you. I discharge my part of the contract, you pay me, that is it, we are done. We move to the development quadrant. These buy organizations are attractive, they are highly attractive. However, they offer low value to our business. As a supplier, we may see potential to grow the accounts with such organizations or such businesses and even go the extra mile in fulfilling contracts in hopes that if all goes well, the customers or these organizations will convert or move from the development quadrants into our core status. Our core customers are highly desirable and valuable for suppliers. These organizations are very attractive in the industry and they also offer very high value to our organization. Definitely, everyone wants to do business with such organizations. If I'm a supplier, doing business with such organizations will even boost my reputation because if other organizations, other suppliers hear that I'm working with such a supplier, such an organization, of course, gives me some goodwill in the market. Suppliers will want to establish long-term, mutually profitable relationships with these organizations if possible. In summary, the supplier preferencing model is a preferencing model used by suppliers to classify their buyers or their customers. We are saying that they group their suppliers into nuisance, exploitable, development, and core. Nuisance customers have low attractiveness to the buying organization and also offer very low value to the supplier's business. The exploitable customers are not attractive to the suppliers. However, they offer very high value to the supplier's business. The development customers are very attractive to the suppliers organization. However, they offer very low value to the suppliers organization. And then the core customers offer are very attractive and then as well as offer high value to the organization. Organizations can appear to be attractive to suppliers if they are fair, ethical, and professional in their trading practices. Also, good reputation and standing in the market for environmental and ethical leadership. The willingness of these organizations to collaborate and co-invest in infrastructure and performance improvement initiatives of these suppliers may make the buying organizations attractive to the suppliers. Organizations may be attractive when they are willing to share risk, cost, and value gains with their supply partners. By way of summary, we have looked at what supplier appraisal is. Supplier approval was also explained. Supplier feedback was also explained and the processes of supplier feedback was also heightened. We also looked at how buyers can determine suitable suppliers by the usage of the supplier preferencing model. Finally, we looked at factors that influences buyers' decision in doing business with a particular supplier. That is what a buying organization can do to appear attractive to the supplying organization. Thank you.